My name is Ariana Menzel, and I'm assistant to the director of the Sterling Institute for Jewish Studies in Modern Israel. I'm also MSU class of '08 and former lecturer of Hebrew at Michigan State. So I am comfortable here as a Spartan. So this festival would not have come together without the immense help of the committee. Thank you to Michal Aydin, Professor Yael Aronoff, Ellen Rothfeld, and Professor Galit for your help. Huge thank you goes out to this festival's co-sponsors: James Madison College, College of Arts and Letters, College of Social Science, Residential College in the Arts and Humanities, Department of Linguistics and Germanic, Slavic, Asian, and African Languages, Asian Studies Center, MSU Hillel, Muslim Studies Program, Department of History, Department of Anthropology, Film Studies, Center for European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies, and the Department of Inclusion and Intercultural Initiatives. Before I introduce Chef Hunny and her partner Stephanie, I want to offer technical information. This is a live cooking demo. So as you are cooking along or have questions during the program, please use the raise hand or preferably the Q&A function through chat, and I will read those out loud for our chef to answer. You can find the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen. This will also be recorded and available on our YouTube channel later today. And one more thing, I want to remind you to join us again at 2 p.m. sharp for our final event of this year's festival. Live Q&A with In Search of Israeli Cuisines narrator, Chef Michael Solomonov. I'll put the link to register in the chat. Chef Hunny Khoradovsky was born in Israel to parents of Moroccan descent. She grew up in Montreal, lived in Los Angeles and Puerto Rico, and after getting married, moved to Detroit in 2012 with her husband and 4 children. Hunny has always been passionate about cooking, learning the basics from her mother. Hunny is a graduate of the culinary program at the Art Institute of Michigan and worked as the executive chef of Epicurean Catering and Restaurant Group. She spent 2 years working at Detroit Selden Standard. Together with her business partner, Stephanie Friedman, she started Hunny. That's Hunny, a professional chef service offering cooking, demonstrations, events, and vacation chef services abroad. When COVID began and many events came to a halt, Hunny began cooking for high-profile and celebrity clientele in their homes in Michigan and California. Hunny and Stephanie value fresh, seasonal ingredients and innovative, healthy cuisine, especially when cooking for their families. Together, they love connecting with others by creating unique and personal culinary experiences. I'm so glad you joined us this afternoon, and without further ado, I hand it over to Chef Hunny.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be doing this demo. I'm just going to do a little introduction of myself. So I've been cooking for about 8 years. When I moved to Michigan, I went to culinary school, and I just did it just for fun. I didn't think I would do it professionally. And then I started working at different restaurants and working under different chefs. And wait, hold on, the phone is just, okay. Sorry, I worked under different chefs. And when I was in culinary school, I always worked for free for different places. Like there were always things on the bulletin. Do you want to stage here? Do you want to stage there? So I had this opportunity of working with a Food Network chef, and I did it for free. And I hit it off with the chef. We really worked well together. Then she hired me. I worked for her for a couple of years, and I just kept networking and networking. A couple of years ago, I saw this ad for a chef from Israel. His name is Meir Adoni. He's a very famous Israeli chef in California. And I called the company and I said I would come to California and I'll fly myself out there and work for free. And I did that. And the lady was a little confused. I was like, you could just Google my name. I just want to get the experience and get out there. A lot of the chefs that worked in the restaurants with me, they've been like doing it since they were 16. And I started a little bit later. I had already had 4 kids. So I just wanted to get like all the experience I could get and work under like all these different amazing and talented chefs. So I went to California and I worked a week with a chef and all different Israeli chefs, and it was amazing and incredible. I was born in Israel. My family moved to Canada when I was 2, and my mom only like cooked everything from scratch in our house. She did not let us eat at restaurants. She told us it was dirty and gross. So we had to, we made everything at our house. We always had fresh bread and everything was made from scratch. So that's how I grew up, and that's how I cook right now. I do almost everything from scratch. And I believe that fresh food is the best way to go, and ingredients are really important. I'm actually really excited about the summer because there's lots of farmers markets. And when I was working at Selden Standard, it's a farm to table restaurant, I met all these local farmers in Michigan. So I made all these relationships, and I'm really excited to be going to all the different farms in the summer and getting fresh produce. So locally, in the winter, I usually shop at Whole Foods, Plum Market. I'll get stuff, from Myers as well. And then I'll try to order like a lot of things online. I'll explain to you different things that I'm using throughout the demo as well. So the dish that I am making today is a Moroccan fish. This is my little twist on the dish. It's a very classic dish, and everybody has all different recipes for it. So I'm going to show you how my take on it. So here's a little board of all the different ingredients that we're going to be using. And I'm going to show you some knife cuts and just a bunch of tips along the way. So the first thing that I want to talk about are the sunchokes. So this is a sunchoke, also known as a Jerusalem artichoke. I did a demo for these a few weeks ago, and a lot of people bought artichokes, and I was like, oh, no, completely different. It's not the same vegetable at all. This is a root vegetable, and it has like a kind of potatoey texture, but it looks like ginger or galangal, but doesn't taste like that at all. I would say if you weren't able to find Jerusalem artichoke, you could definitely substitute potatoes. It would be different, but it's totally fine. I would not substitute artichokes for it though. Now, the way that you clean these, you scrub them really well, or you could peel them. But once you do peel them, they oxidize. So I just put them, after I cut them, I just put them in water so they don't turn brown. And you could have them in water for a few days once you cut them. Okay, so that's this ingredient that a lot of people were asking about. Okay, so I'm going to start with my board. So there's all different kind of boards that you could get, and it's really nice when you could get a non-slit board, which we have right here where it doesn't move. But this board we're using is kind of slippery, and I want a steady board when I'm cutting all my vegetables. So what you do is you just take a piece of paper towel and you fold it, and then you dip it in some water, not too much water. And then I did a few pieces before, and then you just put them right under your board. And in the restaurant, these are the boards that we use. So this is just a trick. And then your board doesn't move. It's nice and steady. Okay, so here is my knife. And I'm going to teach you how to hold a knife and how to do some knife cuts. It's a little bit hard to do on Zoom, but I will do my best to show you how. So you always, when you hold a knife, you want your thumb and your finger to be on the blade, not like this or like this. Really, you want to have a lot of control over cutting. So you want to hold it just like that. And Another thing is people always ask me if, my knife is sharp enough. How do you know? How do you know how often you have to sharpen your knives? So here's just a little trick. You take your knife and you put it on your nail and you try to rock it from side to side. And if your knife doesn't move, you know that your knife is nice and sharp. I'll give you an example of a knife that isn't sharp. I'll try to find one right here. So this is just an old knife. And when I go back and forth, it doesn't stick in my nail. So this knife is not sharp. So if you're at home, you could test your knives and you could you could probably get your knives sharpened. If they're not sharpened, we could also recommend places that you could go get your knife sharpened at. And I think that's really important because if your knife is not sharp, you're more likely to cut yourself because your knife could slip. Okay, so that's just a little tip about how to tell how sharp your knife is. So I'm going to show you how to cut an onion. So it's going to go in front of me. So what you want to do is you want to take the root end and put it down. And you always want it to have a flat surface so it doesn't rock and then it won't slip and cut yourself. So what you do is you take your left hand, or if you're lefty, your right hand, and you put your knife against your fingers. So, and you want to tuck in the tips of your fingers and you make your first cut down. Then what you do is I'm going to show you how to do a small dice and julienne onion. So what you do is you're going to take your hand, put it flat on the onion, and you're going to go across just a couple of times, 3 times on a medium onion. And then you're going to take your knife, and as you can see, my knife is leaning against my fingers, and I'm going to go down. Now, when your knife is sharp, it goes right through and it doesn't slip. And then the way you know which way to go down is just by following the structure of the onion. The onion, there's lines going down, so you just follow those lines. And then you're going to go right across it. And if you see, my knife is always touching my finger. Okay, so you don't use the whole onion. This is all perfect small dice. And what are you going to do at the end? This is just a little thing I do. I collect all my scrap and I make a vegetable stock out of it. So this is a vegetable stock that I made previously, and I'm going to add all these onion ends to the stock. So that is my onion. Another thing is, a lot of times you want to push your vegetables to the side with your knife. You want to make sure not to use the blade side to push because that will dull your knife. You just want to turn around, use the back, and push it to the side. So now we're going to do a julienne cut. And what we're going to do is, again, look at that structure and just go right down, following that structure. And obviously this takes lots of experience. When I was in culinary school, the first thing I asked my instructor was like, I want to learn how to cut really, really fast, like the chefs on TV. And he laughed at me and he's like, that will take years of experience. So don't worry, just kind of get that rocking motion and holding the knife properly before you can get the speed. So again, here's like just some scrap and I'm going to add it to this stock. Okay, so now we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to do a roll cut. This is a nice cut because you get nice uniform pieces and it's pretty easy to do. So what you do is you're going to cut your carrot on an angle. I'm not going to use this piece. I'm going to throw it into my little stock pot. And then you put the piece that's on the bias and you go in the middle and you make your first cut and then you roll it and then you keep doing that. And what this does is it gives you pretty even pieces. And they're nice bite-sized pieces. Now, if you have a smaller carrot, again, you're going to put that in your stock pot. You could just do them a little like longer. That way, they're all pretty uniform. So just, again, all the scrap, you save all that scrap and just keep turning. Now so that's what I'm going to do for my carrot. And then for the sunchokes, I do that same cut. So you want to make sure that you scrub the sunchoke really well. You don't have to peel it, but you can if you want to. And you're going to have your fingers on the tip of the knife, and then you just cut and turn. Now, sunchokes are really good in a pureed soup. They have like a sweet floral taste. So if you want to like puree, cook these with maybe fennel, sunchoke, some potato, you could do like dill, onion or leek, and then you cook this down and you do a puree with it, and it tastes really good. So you could definitely use it for that. Or if you just wanted to it comes out really creamy when you puree it. So if you wanted to do like a steak over a puree, you could just do like a straight up puree for that and add some maybe heavy cream and thyme, and that would be good too. So there's a lot of different uses for this, and they're usually available at Whole Foods. So that is the sunchoke. And then I want to talk about garbanzo beans, also known as chickpeas. So you could definitely use canned beans. I like to use dry beans or fresh garbanzo beans. So fresh garbanzo beans are not always available, but they come in like a little pod and they're bright green when they're fresh. They're really delicious. When I'm in California, I love to get them. Or you could just get the dried version. So what you do is you soak them overnight or, for 10 hours, and then you drain them and then you cook them for about an hour and a half. Now, depending what you're using them for, if you're doing like hummus, you want to add some baking soda to the water to break down the garbanzo beans so that they're really soft. If you want to remove the skins, there's just a little trick. You soak the garbanzo beans with baking soda overnight, and then you drain them, and then you toss them in some baking soda and then roast them in the oven, and then the skins come off. There's a lady in Michigan, her company, her name is Marina Bood, and she actually sells garbanzo beans that don't have the peel on them. So if you want her information, I think it's like, I can give you, I think it's more, you could just Google Marina Bood chickpeas and her website comes out. She's located in Dearborn. So again, like I'm always trying to find like great places to get different products from, and like local or just anywhere that I could get the best stuff from. So these are cooked garbanzo beans. And now I'm going to show you how to cut a pepper. So this is a jalapeno and this is a Fresno. I love Fresnos. I love the heat level of them. They taste delicious. They're a little spicier than a jalapeno. And they also have a little bit of a sweetness to them. I like pickling them or just using them raw in like a salad. So the only thing is that if you're going to use these peppers and you wear contact lenses or you scratch your eyes often, you probably want to wear gloves. I've made that mistake of cutting this and putting my contacts in, and then my eyes are literally about to explode. So I'm going to show you how to cut the jalapeno. So what you do is you just cut off each end, and you could even throw the end into the stalk, and then you make a little slit in the jalapeno, and this is the same way I would cut a regular bell pepper. And then you open it up just a little bit, and then you want to remove this inner the seeds inside. So you run your knife along the center of the jalapeno, and that's it. And then it removes everything inside. And what you do is you're gonna just cut the pepper one way, and again, make sure your fingers are always against the knife, because if your hand's here and your knife slides, you can cut yourself. But if your fingers are blocking, then it won't slip. Okay, and then we're gonna go the other way around. Just like that. Okay, and then again, I'm pushing it with the back of my knife. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the Fresno. So I'm going to make a little slit and then go all the way around. Okay. These seeds got everywhere. I'm just going to push them to the side. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Cut it one way and then the other way. I'm going to wash my hands, even though that won't help if I'm scratching my eyes, but I'm just going to wash them so I don't have all this heat on my fingers. Okay, so in the winter, it's hard to get really good tomatoes. So I definitely recommend using like really great canned tomatoes. Or what I do in the summer is I'll get a lot of tomatoes, I'll cook them down, I'll roast them, and then I'll vacuum seal them and freeze them. This is a tomato puree that I made right before the summer ended and vacuum sealed. So I'm going to use these, but I also brought different canned tomatoes to show you. These are really good. These are fire roasted. So they added another level of like that, roasted flavor. You don't need to use these. You could use any canned tomatoes or any good quality canned tomatoes. Really good San Marzano tomatoes are acceptable as well. And then I'm just going to show you with herbs. So after I use a lot of herbs. I love that fresh burst of herby flavor in my cooking. So after I pick my herbs, I'm left with these stems, and I always keep them because I use them for different soups and stews and just chutneys, there's a lot of flavor in stems. So today I'm gonna add them to this stock that we're making. And you just break off the stems. They don't need the leaves, and you put them in this liquid. So now that I've used all the vegetables that I'm using, this is the stock that I have, and I'm gonna just bring it to, this is a really small batch, so I'm just gonna bring it to a boil and then to a medium heat for about, I don't know, maybe like 15-20 minutes until the onion's nice and cooked. Okay, so
Go back up.
that one.
Mm.
All right. So just a little bit cleanup here. So it's important that you always clean as you go when you're cooking. I always like stop every like hour or so to just like wash dishes, make sure everything's like nice and clean and organized. I think it's really important when you're cooking. I cook for a lot of like different private clients, and I go into their homes and cook, and everything has to be really clean because you never know who's going to walk in at any time, and you just want everything to look really nice and perfect. So a lot of people have been asking me, like, what have you been doing since COVID? So Stephanie, who's recording right now, we have a private chef company where we would travel around the world or travel locally and do private events for people. And then when COVID happened, all that stopped, and people weren't really having parties. So I was offered an opportunity to work for a very high profile celebrity, I guess you could say. And I was very excited by this. I thought it would be a really great opportunity. And I was like, you know what, why not? So they don't live in Michigan. They live in California. And I decided to take the job, and I've been working there for 10 months. I wish I could share more information, but I have a 13-page NDA agreement, and it's been an amazing experience. And they also have homes locally. That's how I got it. They have a few homes in Michigan. So I travel to their different properties, to their different homes, and I'm going to California in 2 weeks. So I'll be there, and it's just been incredible. And it's something that I haven't done before, cooking for this type of person. And it's very demanding, but I absolutely love it. And it's been a great experience. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now during COVID. Okay, so now we are going to start by cooking the fish. So I like to season the fish about 15 minutes before I'm going to actually cook it. This dish, you don't need to use fish if you don't want to. If you don't add the fish, it could be a delicious vegan stew. You could serve it over quinoa, over couscous, over pasta, orzo, whatever it is. You could just make the sauce and then not add the fish in the end. And I'm going to show you two different ways of preparing the fish. We are going to do just filleted salmon, and also we are going to make fish balls, which is I'm Moroccan, so we would say like boulettes, which means like fish like balls in French. Okay, so I'm just going to season the fish with salt, and I use coarse salt and some pepper. We're going to season both sides of the fish. Now, I get my fish from a fish distributor, a local fish distributor, which is not available to everybody. Whenever I go to like Whole Foods or anything, I want to like see the fish, smell the fish, and I like ask the guy behind the counter, hey, like, can I just like smell it? And they think I was like totally crazy and totally weird. They're like, no, you can't smell the fish. But I go home and then I get this fish from Costco or whatever, wherever it is, and have this like gross smell. So I wouldn't be happy with it. So things to check to know that your fish is fresh. So one tip is smelling it. You want to make sure that it has no fishy smell. The next is touching it. So what you want to do is you want to press the fish and make sure it's nice and firm. If your finger dent stays in the fish, like even in the store when you buy fish, you can kind of just like press it. If your finger stays in, it's not fresh. You also want to check the eyes. The eyes should be nice and shiny. And lastly, obviously you can't do this in the store, but if you buy it at home and you want to check it, you just feel it. You run your finger through the fish and you check your fingers. And if your fingers are like slimy, obviously it's not fresh and you probably shouldn't use it. So this is nice. This is a nice smooth skin. It's not slimy. This piece is a great piece of fish to use. Okay, so that is my little fish tip. Okay, so now we are going to start cooking the vegetables. I like to use this tagine. The brand is Emile Henry. Not all tagines, you can't use all of them to cook on the stovetop. This one you can. So if you do buy one of these, just be careful and make sure that you're able to use to put it on the stove. Some of them are just decorative. I love this dish and I'm going to show you exactly why I love it so much. So I'm going to turn the oven on.
Chef Hunny, we have a question.
Yes.
All right. So we have two questions while you're preparing the tagine.
Okay.
One is, do you use fresh fish only, or can you use previously frozen fish? And the second question is, as you're talking about the tagine and of your Moroccan Israeli heritage, how that has influenced your career and your choices in foods you prepare for your clients, or just in general, how you cook for yourself and your family.
Okay. What the first question was?
Frozen fish.
Frozen fish. So I personally, it depends who's freezing the fish. Frozen fish from Costco, I do not like. The one that comes in the freezer, I think it's very waterlogged. I don't like the texture of it. I get fish. I buy like a bunch of fish and then I vacuum seal it really well and freeze it, and it comes out perfectly. If it's wrapped really, really well, it really would depend how you're freezing it. Vacuum sealed, tight, fresh fish, that is great. Maybe there's other, I haven't tasted, like I know Trader Joe's, they have a lot of like frozen fish and I don't think the quality is great. I have like, I'm a food snob, so I have high standards, But if you're, sealing it well, or, your fish guy, like my fish guy, sometimes I need, I'll travel somewhere and they won't have, fish. So I'll have to like bring it with me. So my fish guy vacuum seals it really tight and I freeze it. And when I bring it, it's perfect. So that's my thing on fish. And the next thing, what was the next question? Sorry.
Israeli Moroccan influences in your cooking.
Okay. So, just a little background about me. So I am strictly kosher and I was trained in a non-kosher setting. So I didn't taste anything in culinary school. What I would do is I would go home and remake all the recipes and, train my palate at home, which was really, really hard because I could never taste anything. I worked at Selden Standard for 2 years, and they serve pork and shellfish and all that stuff, and I don't eat anything. I don't eat vegetarian. I keep very strict kosher. So I really was there, like I wasn't there to influence others. I was more there to like learn for myself and develop my own palate so I could learn and become better at what I do. But what happened was when I was at Selden, we'd have a big staff meal every day. And one time it was hectic and they asked me to, make staff meal. And I made Israeli food because that's what I know how to make best. Huh?
Rabbit.
Oh yeah. And they gave me a rabbit. So there, I was like, oh my God, I never cooked a rabbit in my life. And I had to use this rabbit, and I made rabbit shawarma, and I made all the dips, like, how like Israeli, like at my house on Shabbat, like we have like 14 different dips and salads. And I'm like making this and making the rabbit, and like, and everyone came, and usually they'll do like tacos, and everyone came out and they were like, oh my God, they put this sign on like, welcome to Hunny's restaurant. And after that, I was like the staff meal queen. Like they'd always be like, all right, honey, staff meal. And you start getting a certain like respect because like a lot of people that work in the restaurant, they just know how to cook the recipes. They don't know how to make things. But because my mom would always like teach me how to do everything, and we had to do everything at home. Like I just already knew. And with all the Jewish holidays and Shabbat, it's just like we're always cooking. And then the family that I work for now, they don't even know that I'm kosher. They have no idea. And I cook lots of like Middle Eastern foods and they absolutely love it. And, just all the different places that I've been, I've worked with all different types of chefs, Italian chefs, French, Japanese. So I'll take little things that I've learned from different people and I make them my own. I don't only cook Middle Eastern food. I love Middle Eastern food, but, I have more of an eclectic, cooking style. But definitely like what my mom has taught me and all the, all that skill, like as from my young child, I definitely use it in everything that I do right now. So, okay. So the tagine is getting nice and hot. I don't want it to get too hot, because I'm going to cook onions in here and I don't want them to burn the second they hit the pot. So I'm just going to take some olive oil. You could also use, grapeseed oil, which is this oil right here. And I'm going to put my onions inside. I'm going to raise the heat just a little bit. And I'm going to let these onions cook for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Now, I always say this with my demos, like I try to eat really healthy and I try to eliminate as much oil as I can. So I don't, a lot of Middle Eastern cooking, they just like douse everything in olive oil. Like, okay, and we're going to finish with olive oil. We're going to finish with olive oil, which tastes really good, but is not necessarily healthy. Like I think when you're cooking at home, I don't think that's like the way that you should be eating. So definitely like when I'm cooking, like when I'm making things for myself, I'm very careful on the amount of oil that goes into things. And the nice thing about the tagine is that when you put the lid on of the this pot, steam, the steam doesn't escape. So what happens is it gets really hot, the steam gets into the tagine, it goes to the top, and then and then the liquid falls down the sides and into the dish, and then it kind of like it kind of cooks the vegetable, and you don't need to use as much oil. You could also add a little bit of stock during the cooking process as well. So this tagine, you could also put it into the oven and you could braise things in it. Like this weekend, I made a really good chicken, like a chicken and rice dish called plov. My husband's Russian, so it's an Uzbekistani dish, and it was really delicious. So what I did was I seared the chicken in it, and then I put the chicken on the bottom, and it like sat in the liquid, and then I put the rice in and the carrots, and then I took this whole thing and just stuck it in the oven. And when I came out, it was like this beautiful pot of chicken and rice, and it was delicious. So I definitely recommend having this, especially if you like to make, braises, lamb, all that stuff.
Chef Hunny, where can you buy a tagine like that?
So this one's from Williams Sonoma, but they have it at Sur La Table. You can get them on Amazon. The brand is Emile Henry. Now, what you're going to see, so first I just want to show you our stock is cooking, and there's a little bit of like foam that comes to the top, so you just want to skim that foam off because you want a nice clear stock. So you just kind of want to get that off, and then what you could see from all the veggies, you get a nice golden vegetable stock.
Smells really good.
Okay, so I'm going to open the tagine, and you're going to see that a lot of steam will escape. So there it is, and you still get a little bit of color on the onions, just a little bit. We don't want too much. And I'm going to mix it up here. Now, you always want to be really careful when you add your garlic, because garlic burns really quickly, and this is with any dish that you make. And then it gets this bitter taste, and it tastes gross. If you burn your garlic, you really want to start all over again. So the onions are starting to soften. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some salt. And you want to make sure that when you're cooking, you always season as you go, not just like at the end. With every layer that you have, you just add salt, just a little bit of salt to each layer. So the onions are cooking, and I'm going to cover it again. Okay, and as you can see, because I salted the fish, it pulls out some moisture. And I'm just going to take some paper towel and pat it down. When you sear fish, you want it nice and dry, or steak or meat. Then you get like a nice crust on it. If there's moisture, you don't get as crispy as a crust. So just kind of pat it down a little bit. Okay, so now we are going to add our chopped carrots and sunchokes to the onions. I'm just going to drain them and open it up. And this does not get too hot if it's on the stove like this. So I'm going to add those in. And then I'm going to add a little bit more salt. And I'm going to mix this up just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to cover it again. All right, so so it's really important the order of how you cook your vegetables, because they all cook at a different time. Like we have peppers right here, and these will cook much faster than obviously the carrots and the sunchokes, and we don't want these to get mushy. So we will add those in later. And also we don't want, and then the garlic as well. I don't want it to be like too toasty. So we're going to add that in just a few minutes. While that is cooking, I'm going to show you how to make the fish balls. So this is just fish scrap that I actually had in the freezer. This is bronzino, and this is just salmon belly. It's good to use like a fatty fish to make the fish balls. because they'll stay nice and moist, and the belly is very fatty. I'm just going to season this fish, and then I have this little food processor right here. I'll probably do it in maybe two batches. So you just put the fish in, and you want to make sure that you're not over mixing it. I like to have texture and pieces of fish as opposed to just a pate.
Someone's asking for a repeat of what the other fish you used is.
Oh, it's branzino, but you could use cod, or you could use only salmon. It's just whatever you have. Like, I've seen this done with like shrimp, or, you know, you could use any fish that you have, works well. So this is the texture that we're looking for, just like that. And then I'm going to take the fish and put it into this bowl. Now, another nice thing about this is that when you buy fish, it's pretty expensive. You know, I pay $9.99 or $11.99 for salmon. And when I ask my fish guy just to give me like all the scrap, it's usually like $3.99 or $2.99. So this is, you know, this is very economical, I guess. So you really, it's just a quick thing. You really want it to be nice and chunky. Okay, so then I put the fish right here. Put this in the sink. Okay, and then I'm going to turn off my stock because it is ready. There's a little bit more foam at the top. I'm just going to skim it. And then I'm going to use it for my fish. And I'm going to just check on this quickly. So as you can see, a lot of steam. Onions are getting a little more color. Now, I learned this working in the restaurant. This is like great tool. It's a cake tester, and it is a great way to test if your vegetables are cooked. So what you do is you take the cake tester and you poke, let's say, the carrot. Now, I know that this carrot is not ready because it doesn't go in, you know, it doesn't go in easily. So I know it's not ready yet. What we do also in the restaurant is we use this to test if fish is cooked, if chicken's cooked, the temperature of chicken. So you just stick it in the protein, and then you put it on your hand and you feel how hot it is. And eventually you learn, you know, how hot it should be when it's cooked properly. Or you could use a thermometer. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes about how to know when your fish is cooked, at what temperature it should be, because overcooked fish is really dry and gross, and I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy overcooked fish. Okay, so now we have the vegetables cooking. I would say they need to cook for about another minute, and then we are going to add the peppers and the garlic. So we just made this fish, you know, puree, and, you know, I don't really have a recipe for it. I kind of just, you could really add whatever you want to it. You know, you could mince up some of these onions and add it to it. You could add some herbs to it. So I'm just going to pick some cilantro. So just an easy way to do that is you take the cilantro and you pull the leaves back. And just like that. And again, I told you I always keep all the stems because they add a lot of flavor to soups and different dishes. Okay, so now I'm gonna chop this up, and I'm gonna add it to the mixture. And then I'm gonna add 1 egg. I probably don't need this whole egg, so I will just add maybe half of it. I would say 1 egg to 1 pound. And some pepper. Now you could add like cumin and coriander, caraway seeds, really like have fun with it. A little bit of paprika is fine. And then before you roll the balls up, you just need to taste it. So you just cook off a little piece of the fish. That, and then I'm gonna grab some panko and add panko to the mixture. And then it's good to refrigerate it so it gets cold so they're easier to roll. So I'm gonna add some panko. As you can see, I'm not measuring, it's just, I'll mix it up. Okay, I'm gonna come back to this. The vegetables are ready. I'm getting some color on them. And now I'm going to lower the heat just a little bit, and I'm gonna add the peppers, the jalapeno, and the Fresno. Okay, so adding that to the tagine, and now it looks like a beautiful rainbow. I like to get those carrots that are like purple and yellow and different color peppers. I just think it looks really pretty. And then I'm going to add a little bit of salt and close the tagine. And then in about a minute, I'm going to add the garlic, cook that for about a minute, and the tomato paste. Now, I just want to say something about garlic. I think it's really important to use fresh garlic. I do not suggest buying minced garlic. It does not taste good. And also, like, if you mince the garlic and put it in the fridge, it's only good for a day. I wouldn't use like second day minced garlic. It has like a really strong smell, and the taste is affected. So I always just like peel a bunch of garlic cloves. You could buy peeled garlic as well. And I like to use a garlic press, and you could put it right into the pot. So I'm gonna just squeeze that. Now, if you don't like garlic, you obviously don't need to use it. Okay, so just kind of get all this garlic out. And I'm going to add it to the tagine. I'm going to cook this for about 30 seconds. And you want to scrape off everything at the bottom of the tagine. If you use more oil, it doesn't stick as much, but what you could also do to get that off is just take a little stock and deglaze the pan with a little bit of vegetable stock. All right, so this is gonna cook for a little bit longer. And then I'm going to add the tomato paste. Now, this is called a pinçage. When you take the tomato paste and add it to the vegetables, as you can see, the tomato paste is a bright red. We want to get it to like more of an auburn color and let it cook out a little. That will take about a minute. So now, once you add in all those veggies, it starts smelling like really good. Okay, so that's gonna cook. And you could see that, I mean, I don't know if you could see on the phone, but the tomato paste are turning into a more auburn orangey color as opposed to this bright red. And then I'm gonna add the paprika. And if you wanna add caraway seeds or a little cumin, or coriander, you could add that right now. I'm gonna check where's that cake tester? Let me get that cake tester right here. So you want to check your vegetables again, and they are not quite cooked. They're probably 50% there. So I'm going to take the tomatoes, just stewed tomatoes that I have, and I'm going to add it to the tagine. And then I'm going to add some of the garbanzo beans. Now these are cooked already, so you don't want to make sure they're not too overcooked. And then I'm going to add some of the vegetable stock. So just like, okay. And of course, more salt and freshly ground pepper. Now this is going to cook for about like maybe 5 to 10 minutes on medium heat with the lid on. And you could see it's kind of runny. We want it to get thicker. Now, while this is cooking, I'm gonna go back to the fish balls. So here's our mixture. And mixing it up. I guess this bowl is a little small, but, and what you do is you're just gonna, cook off a little piece just to make sure that it's seasoned properly. And like I said, I would do like maybe for 1 pound of fish, half a cup of panko breadcrumbs and 1 egg. Okay, and then I'll put it in the fridge to firm up. Okay, so that looks good. Now, another thing you could do if you don't want to make balls and you like fish and you want to cut out at meat, you could make like a fish, like meatloaf, but like a fish loaf. And then you could like spoon this sauce and tahini over it, which tastes really good. You can cut it in slices. There's like a lot of different ways to go with this. And you could also make the fish balls, sear them, freeze them, and then vacuum pack them. And they do really well in the freezer. You could do that too. So we're gonna go back to our stew right here. Does anyone have any, questions? Because we're almost coming to an end. So I just want to be able to answer any questions anyone has.
There are no new questions now, but please use Q&A if you have any. And yeah, we're excited to see. We can't believe this is all going to come together in like 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay. Another thing that I wanted to share with you is something while that's cooking. It's called peel chuma or harissa, and it's basically a flavor bomb. It's a lot of just chilies and garlic and spices, and it's really annoying to make and takes a really long time. So what I do is I make a huge batch of the peel chuma or harissa, and I freeze them in ice cubes. I had heart ice cubes. So I freeze them, and then you could add them to a dish. I just pull them out and add them. Like that would go really well in this dish. It just adds like another burst of flavor. So I definitely recommend, if you're really into cooking, to make a big batch of this and freeze it. I do this with Thai curry paste. I make a big batch of it, or different like curry paste, and I freeze it in ice cubes, and then I label it, and just every time I need it, I take it out. And when I travel with families, there's, we don't have an unlimited staff, not always, sometimes. And I'll bring this stuff with me. That way I don't have to be making curry paste. And sometimes, when we go to different places, I was in Hawaii with the family, and it was really hard to get products. So having all this stuff brought with me was a huge help. So definitely a little chef tip.
So someone has a question on the topic of fresh fish. I guess this depends on where people are located, but where would you recommend getting fresh fish that's affordable? And wants clarification if fresh means caught the day of, the day you buy it from the store.
Okay, I don't know about like day of, but in the summer, there's like all these farmers markets. And then they usually have like a fish booth. So I would say like befriend that guy, and then throughout the year you could get fish from him. I get my fish from 2 places. Motor City, Motor City Seafood. And what was the other one? The Japanese one I got?
True World.
And True World. So when I get like, anytime I need like sashimi fish, I go to True World, and any of the other fish, I go to Motor City. Like Whole Foods, like they have pretty good fish. So does Plum, but it's a fortune. Where else do we go?
I think the concern was where to make it more affordable.
I would say Whole Foods, or befriend, like in the summer when you're at the farmer's market, befriend the fish guy. Where? Nino's? Oh, Nino Salvaggio also. I know I would say your best bet is in the summer to befriend those like fish booths, and then, make a relationship with them. That's really what I do. Okay, so, but I would say Whole Foods. I think their prices are, you know, for the quality, pretty reasonable. All right, so the sauce is cooking, and you could see that when I run my my spoon, there's a, you know, it's not just the sauce. There's a little room for the sauce to, you know, like there's a little, the C split a little. And I like to add my herbs at the end so they're nice and bright. And again, I will check my vegetables, and they are pretty good. They look good. They probably need another 2 minutes, but we don't have that. So I'm going to add my fish. So what I'm going to do is, you could cut your fish in pieces or whatever you want to do. And I just put it right inside. Now you could sear your fish and then add it to it, or you could do it this way. And also I'm going to show you how you could also add the fish balls. So you just make the balls and nestle them in just like that. You know, you could add some sauce if you have a spoon, just cover it with some of the sauce. And then that's why I love this thing. You just cover it on top. And now I'm going to talk about the temperature of the fish. So with a braise like this, the sauce is really hot. So when it comes out of the oven, the sauce is bubbling, and the fish keeps cooking. So I like my fish cooked, you know, perfectly at about 130, 135. So I pull the fish when it's about 126, 27, if you're using a thermometer. And then, you know, by the time I'm ready to eat it, it's perfect. So you could definitely use a thermometer. Another thing to tell if you overcooked your fish is if you see a piece of salmon, let's say, or any fish, and there's like white stuff coming out of it, that's like the proteins coming out of it, and you know you've gone too far, and your fish will probably be very dry. So just careful with that. Now I'm just going to show you how to cut the herbs. This is just, we're going to finish the dish with parsley and cilantro. So I'm just going to pick some cilantro and parsley. I love herbs. And
Chef Hunny, while you're demonstrating how to do the cutting, would you be able to talk about this specific dish? Someone wants to know if this is a dish your mom made, how you adapted it, and does she consider both Moroccan and Israeli food when she cooks for you?
Okay, sure. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut this quickly. You just put it into a ball and cut it against your finger again. And I'm gonna talk about this dish. So there's different names for this dish. Moroccan fish, some people call it prime. It is not traditionally made with sunchokes. That my mom sometimes would add potatoes to it, but that's something that I added. Another thing that I added are like Fresno chilies. My mom uses just like pepper flakes. So all these like different fresh ingredients, I've added those myself. It is, if you're like hardcore Moroccan, you eat this fish every Friday night. It's just like, you know that, like when you say you're Moroccan, most people are like, does your mom make Moroccan fish? So we had this almost every single week at our house. So it just, when you hear like Moroccan, you hear, you know, this type of fish. And it's just very comforting and warm, and it has like a lot of flavors. It tastes really good. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. And my kids love it, and it's just a really great crowd pleaser.
Awesome, thank you.
And also it's like really healthy. You have like there's garbanzo beans, there's vegetables, like it's a very full meal. Like you don't need to eat, you don't need to have like rice and all this stuff. It's like really healthy. It's really filling and it's delicious. And another thing is like potatoes, they're, heavy in carbs and starch. And the sunchokes, like a lot of times when I cook for people, they're diabetic or they're on the or they're they're famous. They want to look good and be skinny, and they have a certain look that they want to achieve, and they can't eat potatoes and they can't eat all these things. And I have to like come up with different ways to like make things that are delicious that are not fattening or whatever. And that's how I added the sunchokes to this, because I was like, shoot, we can't use potatoes because they can't eat that. And we wanted a full meal that was filling. So that's how this came to be. All right, so I'm going to open the fish, and as you can see, I'm going to use my cake tester right here, and it goes in easily. It's cooked perfectly. The fish ball is still a little bit raw. So I'm going to flip it over. And the fish, if you look inside, it's almost there. It's a little bit medium cooked, so it depends how you like it. I'm going to make sure that it's still not sticking to the bottom. And I'm going to add the fresh herbs right on top. And voila. I can finish it with a little bit of salt, and that's it. Okay, so that is it. That is our fish.
That is so beautiful and on the dot, 1 hour. That was amazing. We do have a couple of minutes if people want to stay on to ask questions before we transition to our 2 o'clock with Chef Michael Solomonov. I do see a question here. Someone says in Hebrew, Toda Rabbah, Haya Ma'anyen Me'od. It was really wonderful. And in English says, going to make it next Friday. I don't know if you know Noam D. That is what he says.
Okay.
Are there any questions from the audience? For me, I'd like to say I thank you for mentioning that you can leave out the fish altogether, and you could add potatoes. You could add more chickpeas to make it vegan friendly. This is really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is great. Hopefully soon we could do these in person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you got a chance to watch In Search of Israeli Cuisine, but we have it available through today to watch through our film festival. Someone wants to know, where do you get the sunchokes?
We got them. These I got from Whole Foods. They seem to have them every time I've been there in the last 3 months. And they also have them at Westbourne Market.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the audience before we let you go and taste this dish that just looks really beautiful? All right, I'll give it 1 more minute. Someone wants to know if you have a website.
Okay, we don't have a website, but we have Instagram. My Instagram name is Hunny the Chef, HUNNY THECHEF, HUNNY THECHEF. I'm not such an Instagrammer because most of my clients are extremely private and they don't let us post anything. So I'm not that active on Instagram, but it's definitely a great way to reach me. And my partner Stephanie, who is cooking, also is, checks it often. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer. We love teaching how to cook and sharing everything that I learned and all my experiences. I definitely don't hide recipes. I share them, and I'm happy to.
That's awesome. And we have one question. I'll mention her name because she's the director of the Sterling Institute, Professor Yael Aronoff, former professor of mine, and obviously now my boss, who I absolutely love working with. She says, thank you. You did a wonderful job. Looking forward to eating it while talking to the chef of the movie In Search of Israeli Cuisine at 2 o'clock. She wants to know, and this is a little bit of a joke if for those who have watched the movie, if you would say that this dish is now part of, quote, Israeli cuisine.
Yeah, so I did watch the movie. It's incredible because the movie basically says that there is not really Israeli cuisine. It's people that came together from all over the world and, created, recipes. Like falafel is not Israeli. I think it's an Arabic food. So yeah, this is like, this is Moroccans that moved to Israel. My whole family lives in Israel. And, became Israeli. And the cuisine is constantly evolving. I really want to go to Israel. I haven't been there in a few years. I was supposed to go this summer, so I'm excited to go see, you know, all the new things. And the movie is incredible. So if you haven't watched it, please do. Yeah.
Well, Chef Hunny, thanks to you and to Stephanie for doing this for us. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you in person someday soon. May everyone be healthy and B'tei Avon.
B'tei Avon, Toda Rabah.